All right, everybody, Logan Alec here. This is my late stimulus update for Wednesday, December 16th. So what's the deal, folks? Where are we? Well, for starters, though, there was great optimism for a stimulus deal being settled today. We're not there yet. Don't get me wrong. There's still optimism. McConnell said on the Senate floor today that they've made major headway toward reaching a bipartisan stimulus deal. And as he left the Capitol, he said they were close and still talking. Chuck Schumer likewise said that he was feeling pretty good about a deal. But the number 2 Republican Senator John Thune said upon leaving the Capitol this evening, it's still a ways off. They've still got some things they're negotiating. It's been a slow roll so far, so what's the holdup? Well, as you know from my previous videos today, it looks like the big, bold figure for state and local governments, something Democrats have pushed for the better part of the year now, will not be in the compromise bill. However, some Republican senators, including John Cornyn of Texas, are claiming that Democrats are looking for places to put all or some of the money they wanted for state and local funding in other buckets. Wolf in sheep's clothing sort of thing, at least from the GOP perspective. In other words, to accomplish their original goal of securing state and local funding, but to make it look a little different. So Cornyn is accusing the Dems of being a little sneaky. Okay, saying, okay, if we agree to no liability protection, we're fine with no state and local either. Kind of saying that publicly, but kind of in more discreet ways, looking for buckets to throw state and local funding into. For example, FEMA funding. Many Republicans are saying that Democrats are trying to accomplish their state and local funding goals through FEMA appropriations. Interesting they point that out, given that Trump was the one who raided the FEMA Disaster Relief Fund for his unemployment boost that he activated via executive memorandum. So it's things like this, like John Cornyn's statement that is kind of throwing a little splash of cold water on the kumbaya, let's make a deal feelings I think a lot of people had earlier about a deal being reached today. Other thing, this bill that we're hoping will get pushed through, this final bill, would not just be stimulus, it would be stimulus, right, as well as government funding, as well as what Senator Roy Blunt is calling little extraneous pieces or pet projects. I was extremely disappointed when I read this. Senator Blunt is saying that some in Congress have pet projects that they want to make sure gets thrown into this huge bill. Really? Pet projects? That's shameful at a time like this. Congress has 2 jobs right now: secure government funding and secure people funding. Fund the government and fund the people. So there's still a road ahead of us. Mitch McConnell told the Republican senators on his caucus call today that they should be prepared to be in session over the weekend. Steny Hoyer, House Majority Leader, had similar sentiments, saying that Congress might have to pass another stopgap measure, maybe for a few days this time, to keep the government funded for another few days beyond this coming Friday, when the current 1-week stopgap expires, if all this stuff isn't passed by then, which it now being Wednesday evening, doesn't look like there's a huge chance of that happening, considering all the things that have to happen between reaching a deal and a bill being signed by the president. Hoyer said he wants to get stimulus and government funding done by Friday night, but hey, if they don't get it done by Friday night, they might put a 3 or 4 day stopgap measure on the floor past that, so negotiations can continue. I thought this was funny. Hoyer said, why this takes so long is because we procrastinate and we pretend just one more day and we'll get a better deal. It's frustrating. Procrastinate? You think? Maybe the powers that be should have talked to each other like they did yesterday. Maybe they should have talked to each other last month rather than last night, huh? How about that, Mitch and Nancy? Also, like I mentioned in my previous video, Republicans are pushing to reduce the length of time that individuals could receive a $300 weekly unemployment boost. The Manchin-Romney bipartisan group was pushing for $300 a week for 16 weeks, January through April, but word on the street is that Republicans are now in this $900 billion compromise bill, pushing to slash that to 12 weeks. Stimulus checks, word is that Mitch wants them because he thinks it'll help the incumbent Georgia Republicans, David Perdue, Kelly Loeffler, in the January 5th Senate runoffs. In terms of the amounts, I told you earlier that John Thune confirmed the checks in this compromise bill would be between $600 and $700. The calculus of who would be eligible based on income is apparently still under discussion. Would it be the same income limitations as under the CARES Act? We don't know at this point. They're still working through those details. Also, while earlier today it kind of sounded like the progressives were warming up to these mini stimulus checks, word broke earlier today that Bernie Sanders had a heated phone conversation with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Manchin's very bipartisan, shall we say, about the amount of stimulus checks. Sanders said, right now we're going to do our best to get the 1,200. Schumer did say that he has been in contact with Sanders, but didn't say much beyond that. It's kind of a given at this point that Republicans want to stay under $1 trillion in this thing. So if they do get up to $1,200 stimulus checks, it's likely that Republicans would push for even further reductions for unemployment. So pick your poison. There were even rumors today that John Thune was pushing to prevent people who are eligible for the $300 weekly unemployment boost, to prevent them from also receiving another round of stimulus checks. I personally think this is a horrible idea, both from a relief perspective and also from an administrative perspective, given that unemployment is administered by the states and stimulus checks are administered by the Treasury, which is a federal agency. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Plus, if they did something like that, they'd probably make you reconcile the thing on your tax return. That's just a stupid idea. I don't think Dems will let that happen, but you never know, because Dems have let a lot happen recently in terms of stimulus. No state and local, slashing unemployment, etc. In terms of other elements, members of Congress are still working on language for vouchers for landlords. I take this to be related to rental relief, perhaps some kind of voucher, like a Section 8 voucher or something that a tenant could present to a landlord. Sounds like they're still trying to work out some details on the small business funding language as well. So that's where we're at right now on this Wednesday evening. There was kind of this loud boom this morning, hey, there's agreement on all kinds of things, we're going to reach a deal. But it seems like as they dug into the details here, they're finding there's still a lot to work through. But I'm so optimistic, like no joke. This is the most optimistic tone we've been hearing from Washington about stimulus since the CARES Act was passed. And plus, it's Christmas. And 300,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. We are not out of the woods yet. The people still need relief. They have to do something. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Unless something huge happens tonight, this will likely be my last video of the day. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.